this video, I'll be sharing with you a corset tutorial on how to cut this simple corset bustier gown. So if this is something you like, kindly hit on the subscribe button. I'll start by drafting the upper part of this pattern, which includes the shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, and shoulder to waistline. Now you have to get the full length of your dress and minus the half length. Now let's start with the upper part. I'll mark my shoulder divided by 2, and from there I'm going to mark my shoulder slant of 1 inch. Mark a basic neckline of 3 inches here, and I'll connect to this point. Next, I'll find my chest line, which is my bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. I'll draw a straight line at that point. Next, I'm going to mark my shoulder divided by 2 plus half inch. Sorry, I didn't mention that this dress has a sleeve, so you're going to add half inch to the measurement of what you have already. So I'm going to mark my shoulder divided by 2 plus half, which is to add the sleeve to this dress. Now after that, I'll measure what I have here, divide into 2 equal parts, and come out by half inch. Here I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. From the midpoint, I'll connect all the way up, and then I'll connect all the way to the chest line of my pattern to the midpoint of the armhole. Next, I'll start by marking my dart. I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches. I'm going to mark this all the way down. So after marking, I'm going to place my ruler and I'm going to draw a straight line at this point. Now after marking this, I'll mark my dart intake of 1 inch on both sides. For a plus size, you can go ahead and use 1.5 inches on both sides of this pattern. Now I'm going to place my ruler and I'm going to draw out a straight line on both sides. So just like I said, if you're a plus size or a bit busty, please go ahead to use 1.5 inches. So after I'm done marking that, I'll place my ruler, connect from the bust to the under bust, and also connect at the other side of this pattern. Now I'm going to mark where I want this dress, the neckline, to start. I'm using 1.5 inches, which is not a standard. Go ahead to use what is okay for you, and I'll draw a straight line there. I'll measure from the neckline to the remaining part of my shoulder, and I'll divide it into 2, connect it to my nipple to nipple point. So I'll go ahead to mark my dart intake of 1 inch on both sides. If you're a plus size, use 1.5 inches on both sides, or 1 inch here, and then mark 2 inches on this side of your pattern. Now let's insert my measurements. Mark my bust circumference divided by 4. So for the dart intake, I will not be marking this at the over bust. I'll use the one at the chest line because I don't want to have much excess by this side, and then I'll add my sewing allowance. Mark my under bust circumference divided by 4 at this point. Then after marking that, I'm going to measure the dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance. Going over to the waistline, I'm going to mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake and add my sewing allowance. So next, I'm going to place my ruler and connect, drawing out a straight line. After I'm done marking this, I'll mark my bust dart. And to mark your bust dart, the difference between your shoulder to waist in front and your shoulder to waist at the back. My shoulder to waist in front is 17, while my shoulder to waist at the back is 15.5. If you minus 15.5 from 17, you're going to have 1.5. So for the slight basque, I came down by 2 inches, and I'll go ahead to connect this to this point. If you feel the 2 inches is much, you can reduce it to 1.5 because the basque there is small. Now I extended my dart legs all the way down. So now what I'll do is to mark how deep I want the neckline to be. So I came up by ½ inch from my chest line, went in by ½ inch, then I'll start connecting to this point. then I'll connect all the way to this side of my pattern. Go ahead to blend out here and extend this to this point. So after marking this, I'll just mark this 1/2 inch. So if you look closely at this dress, you find out that this part was not actually cut out. This is more like a bustier pattern that has like an addition to make it look like a corset. Here I went up by 1.5 inches and I'm going to cut out. I'm going to connect, sorry. So I'm not going to cut this out. It's going to be there like a bustier pattern, right? And then you're going to place a fabric on top to create that corset look there. So what I'll do here is to go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. So I will not exactly, what I'll do is to go ahead and I will come in a bit by 2 inches or 1.5 inches from that point to give it that curve that we have there on the pattern. So now what I will do is to go ahead to blend in my dart this way, and I'm going to connect this all the way to the under bust of this pattern, and I'll be taking this to the upper part of my pattern. I'm going to go ahead to blend out my pattern. From this end, I'll come in by 1.5 to 2 inches, and I'll go ahead to connect this all the way to this point. Now I'll also come in here by 2 inches and I'm going to go ahead to connect. Why I'm using 2 inches, if you use 1/2 inch to attach your sleeve, you'll be having 1.5 inches left. So what I'll do now is to go ahead to cut this out. I forgot to explain, whatever you're cutting on this line should not be too curvy, rather it should have a slanted effect at this point so that it will not really look like a corset cup. So after cutting this out, I'll go ahead to explain how to join your pattern to get what we have on the dress. Now while cutting, I'll just cut this as a bustier. Now, so from the sleeve part to tighten it, what I'm going to do is to come up by 0.3 inches, then slant it into the armhole. If you notice, I didn't cut out the armhole area, like I didn't mark that 0.3 into the straight into the armhole. This is just for me to still maintain the armhole line, just to tighten the sleeve a bit. So what I'll do next is from this part I'll still blend out my dart, and I'm going to go ahead to cut this out now. So from here also I'm going to go ahead to cut this. So just like I said, this is not like a proper corset or bustier pattern. So what you're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead to join these two as one piece. When you're making this dress, you're going to be cutting this your pattern on fold. That is the center part, you cut it on fold. There's no joining at the center, right? Now you now cut out the side. So let's say now you're making this dress, what you do is join this center piece to that of that side. So when you have something like this, now the next step you're going to take is you're going to like drape a fabric on it. So let's say this is the fabric I have. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead to pleat this paper so that it will have that pleating or draping on it, because I'm using an actual paper and not a fabric for this illustration. After that, what you do is you're going to place your fabric and you're going to drape it over the cup this way. So let me just cut out the excess that I don't need. So just like I said, if you're doing this, you're going to be cutting this bustier area, the upper part on fold. That means as you're draping this now, you're draping the both sides of the cup together. It's from one side of this cup, you're going to cover the center and then cover the other side of the cup with drapes. So after you're done doing this, so let me just place this on a flat surface to re-explain, right? So this is my fabric. I'm draping from one end of my cup, the center, and also to the other side. So after covering that, then join the draping from this part. You're going to join your cup to the under bust area. Now for the center piece, you're going to cut out a fabric. Go ahead to top stitch it at the under bust and then place it over to the bust area this way to create that corset effect on it, and you're going to top stitch it. Now if you look at this dress, just like I said, you notice that what we have there is not like a corset. It was actually placed on top of it to give it that corset effect at the center of this dress. So what you do is join your cup, drape the fabric across your bust area, and then join it down to this under bust area. After you're done joining it, go ahead to like take this center piece, place on it, and then place it on top of it this way and top stitch on it, right? Then you can now go ahead to join your lining, and you're going to turn this to the right side to have this front part of this dress. So for the back pattern of this dress, I marked out the zipper line, the shoulder to bust, and the waistline. So the waistline of the back is shorter. So also I marked the chest line area, found the armhole, and the same process we took for that of the front. Only difference is that I have a zipper at the back of the dress. So I'll start by marking my darts, which I'll mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches. Now I'll place my ruler and draw out a straight line on this part. So whatever you're marking should start after your zipper line. So I'll mark a basic dart intake of 1/2 inch on both sides of this pattern, and I'll go ahead to extend it all the way up. So after connecting this now, I'll go ahead to insert my measurement. I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4 at the bust area and add a sewing allowance. At the waistline, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4 and I'll measure the dart intake, replace, and add my sewing allowance. Now I'll place my ruler and I'll draw out a straight line on this pattern, like I'm going to connect the bust to the waistline. Now I'll go ahead to outline the chest area. So let's say at the back of this dress, I'll come in by 2 inches. So these 2 inches will be taking it down. So now what I'll do is to come up here by 1 inch or 1.5. This is because I don't want the back to be that low at this point. But if not, you can go ahead to maintain your chest line and I'll connect it down. At this point, I'll just go ahead and connect what I have here all the way down, or you can still mark that same 2 inches. I'll mark 0.3 inches here and blend it in. This is because I want to tighten the upper part of this dress, and if you notice, I slanted it towards the armhole, which I didn't reduce the armhole measurement. I marked 1/2 inch here and I connected it up. This is to get rid of the zipper bulge at the back of the dress. After this, I'll just go ahead to cut out the back pattern. Then after cutting out the back pattern, we are going to work on the lower part. Now for the lower part of this dress, what you're going to do is measure your shoulder to waist and deduct it from the full length of the dress. Let's say the full length of the dress is 45, and then your shoulder to waist is 15.5. If you minus it, what you'll be left with is 30 inches. That 30 inches, add like a folding allowance to it, and let's say the folding allowance is 2 inches, making it 42 inches. So you're going to cut 4 yards by 42 or 3 yards by 42 inches of length. This totally depends on how full you want the gathered area of the lower part of this dress to be.